dear friends, this will be a different presentation because I will deal with details on the boats, not sailing them. This headline was given to me by Escort, and I said, of course I can try to make something out of it. I chose this picture because I think it's a very nice looking boat. It's the very first Swan 36 number 1, which is owned today by the yard. The yard decided to buy it back, and it will be 46 years this summer. All right. And you can see it's still looking very nice. But how do you know it is a Swan? The most important thing is the coast stripe. It's a recessed coast stripe, and very few other boats have this feature. There is one, I have to tell you, because they have actually splashed a mold from a Swan and then started to make the pilot copy. But generally, if you have a recessed coast stripe, then you know that it's a real Swan. The oldest boats do not have builder's plaques because it was not understood that it would be needed in the beginning. But after a few years, a simple plaque like this was introduced. It's aluminium. Unfortunately, the corrosion resistance is not very good of that stuff. So many of them have disappeared during the years. Then about 1970 was decided to start to use brass plaque, which has much longer life. And this is the plaques that you usually see on the newer boats. Today they are different because the European rules require additional text on the plaque, but should we say the classic Swans still have this type. There's the hull number, the month of delivery, and the year. And these things are on record at the yard, so you can check with the yard that it's correct. Because we have seen some fake plaques in the world also. This is a typical Sparkman and Stevens design from the 60s. And has a deep canoe body. It's down to here. And in yacht design, that means a high displacement length ratio. And the general concept is that a high value means a heavy and slow boat. But there is an advantage, and that is that the hull is deep, you get the floorboards deep down, and you need less freeboard to get decent headroom in the boat. And I would also say that the boats are not that slow if you are able to sail them correctly. They have skeg rudders, and unfortunately, that is a problem when going stern. You have lack of control. That means there's a lot of propeller walk. The propeller is pulling the stern to the side, especially if you use much throttle. So if you have a boat like this, start slowly and pick up some speed, then the rudder begins to work. This is a typical midship section. There are lots of stiffness and fairly thin skin in the hull. On the boat, in the, say, about 40 feet, the skin thickness is maybe 6 millimeter. And many people are scared by that number. They think that it's not strong enough, but I would say that it has worked. There are not particularly advanced materials in the old boats. It's glass fiber and polyester. Unidirectional glass is used. That means all fibers are in the same direction, and that makes a strong laminate. And if that is used in the correct places, then you get a big advantage out of it. Another special thing is that underwater there are 2 layers of clear gel coat. This is unusual, and many yards think that maybe Nautor forgot to put the gel coat on. It was nothing, no colors there. Actually, the clear gel coat has less water penetration than a pigmented gel coat. So this is an advantage. The boat top and coast stripes are gel coat and laid in the mold. Many new boats have painted lines, and you can see the difference. Decks are foam core with aluminium black cup plates on the winches and fittings. Keels are cast lead, stainless bolts. The famous interior consists of finished plywood onto which teak and other woods are glued. A very light yellow wood is named koto, if you have seen maybe interiors of that type. But koto is not very good. If there is moisture around, it will darken quite quickly, so it has not been used lately. And the varnished surfaces are hand rubbed. That's a special feature. Rod Stevens introduced trim screws. It's a little screw right there on the stern or on the bow, and they are located at a certain distance above the waterline, the design waterline. So if you measure the height of these screws, you know how the boat floats in relation to the design. But unfortunately, many people do not understand the meaning of this, and they take them away, and then you have a problem if you want to measure these things. It was good that Jussi mentioned trim tabs. Many of the older Swans have a trim tab at the back end of the keel, and you can actually see it on deck because there are 3 different wheels. And they are used to control the trim tab. there are instructions for how to do it. The trim tab can be used in 3 different ways. It can be locked, it can follow the main rudder, or you can steer it with its own wheel. And if you, for example, make the trim tab to follow the main rudder, you will turn very, very quickly around the buoy, for example. On the wind, you can reduce leeway by turning the trim tab a little bit. On many boats, they have been disabled because they gave a lot of penalty in the waiting room. But now it's interesting that some owners have restored the trim tabs and start using them again. The keel is not very small, has a low aspect ratio, but we found out that this is quite good in big waves. The very narrow, deep keel fins do not work in big waves because the water is so disturbed. So this is a more forgiving type of keel for, to say, ordinary sailors. Compared to the Swans of today, if you have happened to see them, the old boats have decks which are full of parade boxes and guardrails and other things. But I would think that it's also nice in hard conditions to have something to grab if you need it. Not have a completely flush deck. The hatches have some coamings which raise them a little bit above the deck surface. And that keeps the water out in a different way compared to a hatch recessed flush with the deck. And this hatch in the middle has been described as leading into a dark cave. Yes, it is a steep entrance, but it's quite safe in offshore conditions. And also this bridge deck here is required for the full width aft cabin, which is a nice feature. There are also pillar plaques on the masts and booms, but they have the same problem that they corrode away slowly. Here you can see the anodized surface of the boom has a much better corrosion resistance than the plug, which probably is painted. This is a typical masthead. It's a very big plate with 2 horns where the spinnaker halyards are attached. And an interesting detail is that the hull number is stamped into the top plate. So if you don't find it in any other place, maybe you can find it on the mast. And of course, this looks very big when you look from this angle, but when it's up in the air, then it's not that impressive. This is a picture from a boat which took off a mast fitting, and apparently the owner has not looked at his mast for about 20 years because it's visible when there's corrosion like this. This white powder is coming out around the edges of the fitting. But no problem, a good welding shop can weld in a new piece, and then you have your mast in good shape again. The masts are not very advanced. It's an elliptical section with thin wall, and on the smaller yachts it's a single spreader, bigger double spreader. The masts are quite stiff, so you do not generally need runners, and they are not very heavy, although the dimensions are big, but the walls are thin. The luff tracks are separate extrusions. And earlier the yacht had its own anodizing plant. So the masts were first drilled and machined, that means all holes were made. And after that, the section was put in the anodizing tank. So all the surfaces are anodized, also in the screw holes. And this is, I would say, unique in the world. There is no other yacht builder having its own anodizing tank today, but unfortunately not even Nautor these days, because the new owners had another philosophy. Mostly inline spreaders. Today, the spreaders are the rule in most inline. Rod standing rigging in the old times was very special. It had threaded ends and flat mid parts. So these rods have been described as pieces of art. They are very special. The original supplier is not there anymore. I guess you may get them on special order at some rod rigging company, but they need to make new tooling for it. The special thing with these rods is that you don't need rigging screws or turnbuckles, because the threads are done right and left each end, so you just turn the rod. And then a warning that the pins used with these rods are much smaller than the normal size. So if you ever have to replace the pins, don't take a pin of ordinary stainless. You may have trouble. Most boats have wire standing rigging with Norseman terminals. This is the old Norseman. They are looking slightly different today. With wire rigging, the pins are normal size, so then you maybe do not have problems. The old rigs have same size for head and backstay, and this is not right if you put in a hydraulic backstay tensioner, because then the head stay should be one size bigger. And on these boats, the strap tanks, this is a strap tank, it may be very long, and that is not good for a bendy mast, because the pull may be out of alignment, and if the strap is long, it will fatigue here at this place. The old boats have wire halyards, and there's a special winch, it's called a reel winch, which contains the whole wire. Here it's very nice regular layers, but I believe there might be a problem with this winch. For example, if you tension the halyard on a loose coil like that, the tension part will go in between the other ones, and then it probably will jam itself, so it should not be used in that way. That's the brake of this winch. If you open that, the winch will release the wire. And there's a very big danger with these winches, because if you have the handle in the socket there and you open the brake, the handle will turn with great force and quickly. And if you are not prepared for that, then it will be very bad result. So if you have a winch like this, you should inform your crew to take the handles away. The old boats have roller reefing booms. They are not used today because sail shape goes very bad immediately when we roll a few turns. Then there was a spinnaker pole bell. I think they are mostly pins today and not bells. The same, it's the same purpose. And many of the boats have a single coil lifting plug attached to the keel bolts, and there's a little cover on the deck that you open, and you can lift the boat with that without the risk of scratching your nicely polished topsides. General halyards were usually wire with rope tails, and then you have to be able to splice the wire together with the rope. But today you don't need wire anymore because there are very good ropes, low stretch and strong, and you don't even need to splice them if you use a suitable knot. Roller reefing booms were round in section, and because of rolling the sail around it, you couldn't attach any fittings to the boom. So you had to use a boom claw that you put around the boom and then attach a line to the bottom of it. And there are special things associated with roller reefing booms. The sheet must be at the far end, the gooseneck sliding on the mast, and a jack line used for the slides. The loft groove was considered unseamanlike at that time. This is the forward end. It needed a throat like this to accommodate the rough lope. Sails in those times had a rope, actually a rope at the loft. And you needed the jack line shown here. If you release this line, the sail slide allows the sail to go further back, and it's it has to go from here to there when you roll the sail. So you need to have a means of allowing the sail to go on the throat. And there the crank, the roller reefing, this looks like a special handle was needed for it. There a reefing hook has been added by the present owner. But there are not many of these booms left anymore. Most have changed to slab reefing. The sheet needs to be attached at a rotating bail at the aft end. And there's a socket for the outhaul crank. There's a screw outhaul that you work with the winch handle. And then there was a newer version later with a little reminder for the helmsman what brand is sail. The boats have plaque sea cocks. The original plate has square pins here on the valve plug. The new ones have reversible handles. That means it's not a square pin there. Otherwise, they are the same. It's a conical plug that goes into the housing. The new plate also have a grease nipple, which the old ones did not have. And these were of bronze. The new ones are of brass, but they are marked DZR, is dezinkification resistant, which is important. You cannot use ordinary brass in seawater because the zinc will dissolve and then the material softens with the time. Steering was one of Rod Stevens' favorite items on board. Somebody mentioned here that Rod Stevens, it was Mr. Herschhoff mentioned, Rod Stevens visited the yard about once a month. And of course, we had many comments in the beginning about how to build good ocean-going boats. But with the time, we are picked up the knowledge. And it should be pointed out that very much it's a credit to Rod Stevens that he did a tremendous lot of work, traveling much more than any aircraft pilot is allowed to travel. The steering is custom made to fit the boat size. There's a suitable reduction for this size of plane. There should be a king's spoke marked, and the king's spoke should be set so it's straight up when the rudder is on the center line. And the free steering needs to turn when there is 1 bounce foot on the wheel. Then the wheel should turn. That is the recommendation. And the emergency tiller is very important. There is a little cover there for this one. And here you can see got 3 wheels, which is a trim tab steering boat. Propeller shaft used a little old-fashioned Morse backing. You adjust this nut and there's a backing band inside here, sealing against the shaft. The classification society said that there must be a fork securing this nut. Even when it's plastic, it will never seize on the shaft. But to make the classification happy, a little thing like that was made. There's a custom-built rudder stock backing gland. The upper piece is the gland, the lower is the locking nut. And you can see that there are holes around the circumference. And you need a special tool. There's a little pin there, right at the end. And many owners have wondered what is this strange tool that they find in the equipment. So that's the reason. The yard has quite good records of all the boats. When they were built, what was the design number, and what sort of variations there are. And for the United States, these models were sold under the name Alma Johnson. They were built in Finland and freighted there, and Alma Johnson sold them under their brand. But they are the same boats. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.